a very important Jumedi bi ebekoso ewo yemaimu. Na Jumedi no se koswa na state interest and governance authority for and a womu se Jumedi we say no. The policy and governance forum womu atu ensa idea free idea fair Akuffo Addo industry players, captains of industry, and womu manage several state industries nibi and as companies nibi no womo any omo etna say no ma bobo ho na nsen state housing for eba yi apiate womo kwakoboa na yesisi adan explosion yi essay no no womo nyina no we would want to know womo vision womo plans womo corporate governance structures, the ability to generate revenue, the ability to ensure that government in the plans our one we are seeing them come to fruition. And we are fortunate say yedi enkomo afa ayesa so yehu dia na yene Director General for the State Interest and Governance Authority bebe na efe no SIGA no yene no na edi enkomo opani Ambassador Edward Boateng and I'll become an up here meneno edi enkomo. Good morning sir, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Nyame adom yesu ekokomu kakra anapa dia say congratulations and yede ebema as a team and from the entire management on your appointment to this very, very important position and pay your new AD and community. Congrats, sir.
Thank you.
Yo, and pay your din come na opani say your SIGA Jumako ben mandate in the saying.
SIGA a friend is saying State Interest and Governance Authority 2019 and campaigning in Parliament. But SIGA Nankasarano, even though you Akuffo is former state enterprises and a diversity and a domi and a boom. Their mandate and under the law is to supervise all the state entities, and also all entities are government or shares kakrao. Companies go are government or shares. Sometimes shares sometimes shares like the mining companies and others. And the mandate is to make sure that these entities they operate under the right business principles. They also operate under the right governance structures, and to make sure that at the end of the day, SIGA government they assume so profit kakra na government also use SIGA no the aye crony taxes to help with the tax collection in terms of building roads, education, health, and other things.
But supervision, we say no. What necessarily does it entail? You can say be a state house, you can say be a STC, you can say any other state operated entity. Supervision, what really does it entail?
At the beginning of every year, all these entities they sign performance contracts with SIGA, and in those performance contracts, they outline and normally they say and during the course of the year, it's our responsibility to supervise and to make sure that they are on track. It's no different from the management of any other business organizations, or is a more happy FM, it's a more bosses or what they say. Yeah, more yebiano or more na kwaya muina more agree so at no Martin and yes ye jumano and all the CEOs, all the boards, the chairman in a way they report to SIGA, and we work with them to ensure that they will achieve their objectives. The truth is we are these government entities and I'd like to use an analogy. They create the economic superhighway, which will make it easier for the private companies to set up. I mean, for NPP, our mandate is that private sector should be the engine of growth. But this engine of growth can only materialize if there is an economic superhighway. And these economic superhighways, normally, it's created by government through entities such as the ones we have here. In the past, I don't think they've been able to perform that role efficiently. And in China, President based on our own experience in the vision, is created SIGA to make sure that this economic superhighway, we can create it so that the private sector can then also ride on the back of it. My Juma or US, my Juma or UK, Europe, and my Juma or Africa, my Juma on Kobe, so me South Africa, so Juma, and Oman Panema, me call China. Ghana, no, everything it's like, who started BBI, you are starting from ground zero. But of course, South Africa, so when I started Global Media Alliance, man see antenna, man see a number of to be a media house now, because that media superhighway had been created. Into Uko Centeca, we see okay, TV station, these are my requirements. Once you have the license, they will set all that thing up for you. And you cut a considerable cost of your cost out. But I say, I feel now obviously antenna, obi track coin, obi. Those things is simplifying so that our economy can grow, because we cannot continue to do things the same way and expect different results. So SIGA is here to ensure that we can do things differently.
We are interested in the performance agreement among ESA agencies we say in SI. The implementation at the same quarterly and a review a year one more agreement among them sign to ensure that they are on track and as a annual at the.
It's an ongoing thing. Some of them we meet with them almost every month, especially more issues. Some of them too quarterly. But at the end of every year, we'll sit and review before we sign. Right now, we're going to 2022. Before we agree to 2022, we have to review 2021 to make sure that you are on track with it. And no matter you agree, when you're on track, you have to explain. If you explain it and talk to me, then we have to make sure that in 2022, and no matter say we put in measures to ensure what we do with targets. And sometimes, even what we do targets, there are some things that you may also need from government. We have to approve those things before the government can release whatever you want. And it's a new process. I would say it's going well. Most of the entities comply and are eager, because most of the CEOs, almost all of them, they want to do well. And all these things are measures being put in place to ensure that these companies will be able to meet their objectives and also turn some profitability.
Profit asemi presently most of these institutions, from Oshasia Woye and previous nipa no or honema or hand over at the mao a note or the amount. How would you describe your state-owned industries and as a companies? How would you describe them in terms of their ability to turn around and make profit?
Some of them are doing well. Some of them need help. Some of them too, is my personal view that Amra yenya independence na kronusa. Also lack of expertise, there was lack of capital. This 65 years. There are some of these companies, I think with time, government has to upload it to private sector people to take over and manage it to the next level. But there are some companies, some institutions that will always have to also be under the care of government, because they provide a public good for everybody. Back to mind, electricity, energy, for instance, water, for instance, provision of education facilities, provision of roads, provision of certain type of things. It's important for the government to be involved. Now, there are others too that the government has done its bit. They can also partner with other entities to take it to the next level. So when we say profitability, it's not always about the fact that they have to make extra money and pay dividends, but they have to be, we have to be able to measure their success, and that's what we look at. These SOEs, they have to to be able to contribute to the bottom line. I mean, one of the things that me personally is surprising me was when I was going through my orientation and at the Ministry of Finance, I realized that SOEs, they have to contribute 1/3 to the GDP. Right now, they're not even doing 10%. So how do we move from where we are now to that 30%? Because if SOEs, they were doing what they had to do, or they were achieving their targets, maybe a lot of the pressure on the physical budget would not be there, because they'll also be contributing. But most of the time, they have to go to the same government for bailouts. So the policy forum today is also to look at these things and see how do we resolve these problems, because I had to say abopo so that some of these companies also can breathe and do what they have to do to help the growth of the economy.
Me share a SIGA Act, Act 990 no. And there's a point I'm person me come out na meji wadwene efa ho, because it's one of the things that surfaced consistently. Governments are being was say develop a code of corporate governance to guide and promote sound corporate governance practices of specified entities. Yatete instances where boards and the CEOs nantokwa abomo entem and ensensem being there presently no. How are you going to do things differently? Says ensensem ya etitled no it will be true.
It's about education, it's about training, it's about setting clear objectives, it's about making sure that the boards understand their role and management also understand their role. Boards there, they give direction. And see, whenever you've seen some of these risks now, it's because there's been a conflict in terms of people's roles crisscrossing each other. Or sometimes, people can be stubborn. You can have CEOs be on in a board as them. But the truth of the matter is, we as CEO, you take your directions from your board. So you cannot go out and implement things on your own. And our board is also, once you've set the vision, it's not your job to go and implement it. So we're going through training with a lot of these entities. Until with time, it will also settle, I hope. I mean, we're not going to solve all the problems in a day or even under my tenure, but at least the processes have started, and I think they will be streamlined and regularized.
I'm imagining the number of state-owned enterprises we see several of them. Now you have to play this supervisory role. It would require a lot of money and also funding for your office to oversee all these institutions. SIGA, Musika Samahwa den same to say.
Yes, the money is very important, but that is not the key to solving problems. The key to solving problems is to have the capacity and the capability and the passion to achieve it. Then when you get the resources, things will begin to fall in place. I think that right now at SIGA, one of my key responsibilities is to build a team that understands what to do. There's already a team in place. I also have to deepen it and make sure that we have the strength of character to achieve what we want to do. Once we have that, and the other things will fall in place. This is not the first time I'm doing a job like this anyway. When I was head of CNN, I was managing 54 countries. I had a lot of presidents I was working with. I had a lot of director generals of state broadcasting companies. And in those days, during my time, when you were director general of a broadcasting station in Africa, you were equivalent to a minister. They were powerful people. And I was working with private sector people. And I was able to manage them. So this is not the first time I'm doing something like this. So it's not something that's not achievable. What we need is the cooperation of the entities. What we need also is that SIGA also has to be empowered by the presidency, because SIGA doesn't really appoint these CEOs. So you are managing people you haven't appointed. You also don't even have the power to fire them. But with time, I think all those things will fall in place, because if you want people to achieve objectives, there should also be consequences for non-performance. There should be rewards for performance. So these are things that SIGA is putting in place. And I think once these things are clear, people will fall in place. I have a notion that when the lines are clear, people fall in place. But when the lines are not clear, like a lot of time we have in our system, no be a idea okay. So we're going to make the lines very clear. So it's not only about the resources, but it's about knowing what to do. I think that's what is important.
Now, the bit about not having the capacity to hire and fire, mandate was say advise government on the appointment and removal of chief executive officers or members of the board or other governing bodies or specified entities. And I'm person business. Sometimes when you're political, party ni biya sum the party na omanpanisi yemfa nkoto ebia SHC na wono susu wonko mane honom na SIGA hu ne se ebia same ye hyen abo ne din sie fa nko honom no ontimi anya adwuma. How easy would that task be, considering that most of these are political appointments?
But if you also look at the political appointments, a lot of them have the capacity. So if you are saying that they don't have the capacity, that is a different issue. I'm here to see anybody who has been appointed who doesn't have the capacity. However, sometimes you can be put in a situation where it may be difficult for you to harness your talents. It's our job to come in and help you. But you're born and then it's our mandate also to recommend to the president to make changes. And I think that one that we will be happy, we will not hesitate to do that. But I think often than not, when people say it's a political appointment, it connotes that people don't know what to do or they are not efficient. I'm a political appointee myself too. But I don't think that you can say that I don't have the capacity and capability to lead SIGA. So the political appointees are people that have the expertise. Yes, we may have one or two challenges, but it doesn't mean that people are not capable.
All right.
I think we have some of the best brains in the country heading these institutions. We just have to make sure that the deliverables are clear. The resources for them to achieve their deliverables can be made available. And where they cannot be made available, what do we do? So for instance, today, we've invited the Ghana Stock Exchange to come and present. The stock exchange has access to over $2 billion US of funds. I didn't know until I met them, and I was surprised. These funds can be accessed by some of these companies, but you have to have certain things in place before you can also have access to those funds. So they will go through the stock exchange and they will teach us what to do, so that hopefully some of these institutions, instead of going to government, can go to the stock exchange. We're going to create and open different avenues of capital raising. And that will help some of these institutions get on their feet. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter how capable you are if you are not given the resources, you cannot perform. And it's our job to make sure that we can open the doors so that people get access to the resources they need. In most cases, being access to capital, especially long-term capital. Because one of the challenges we have in this country, and even those of us I was in the private sector before, cost of capital is very expensive. How do you expect to grow when your competitor is borrowing at 5% or 2% or 3%, and you are borrowing at 28%? Secondly, you have 3 or 5 years to pay off your loan. The other person has 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. How do you achieve? So there are also some structural issues that need to be addressed. And that's why, for me, my first step is to try and involve the stock exchange, so that instead of 5 people struggling with a problem, you can put this on the stock market and get what they term as patient capital. Their capital is patient. Into American go baby. So you can use that money and use that to grow the business and turn things around. And that's what we want to do. There are a lot of these funds around, but we haven't been able to develop them. And hopefully at SIGA, and SIGA can't do this alone. SIGA has to work with the Bank of Ghana. We are working very closely with the Ministry of Finance. And with time, we also have to work with our donor agencies to find out what we can do to make sure that we bring more resources into the system to harness the potential of the country. Look, in 10 to 20 years' time, Ghana is going to have a very educated workforce. Now, that itself will solve about 10% of our GDP problems, because now we're going to have a very productive workforce. But they need access to capital. They need access to capital which can help them to innovate, which can help them to develop new products. And unless we create that platform now, it's going to be very, very difficult. That's why I use the term economic superhighway. Just like we're building roads, just like we're building houses, we need to build the economic superhighway so that these kids who are coming out of free SHS in 10 to 20 years' time can take their bicycle or their scooter or whatever if they want to run, but they are running on a superhighway. Just like we do Tamamoto where we'll be to bicycles, we'll be to tricycles, we'll be to Mercedes-Benz, we'll be to truck, but they are all riding on the same highway. That is what we have to create.
Final question, a bit of education on the policy and governance forum. One more, what the intent is at the end of the day.
Policy forum, I'm not pay President Beba to outline his vision. Our theme for today is improving the performance of specified entities through leadership and technology. And I think I've spoken a lot about the improvement of how we are going to improve it. I will be speaking, my sector minister will also be speaking, the Minister of Finance will be speaking. And we've also invited some experts. I've spoken about the Ghana Stock Exchange. The bosses will be there to talk about how do you access capital from the stock exchange. We'll also have the NDPC, Dr. Jambafo, to talk about what they are doing there and how it's going to tie in what SIGA is doing, what the state entities are doing. Because at the end of the day, the dots have to connect, and we're going to try and connect the dots. You talked about governance. We'll have somebody from a consulting company coming to talk about how do you manage a board? When you're on a board, how do you manage it? How do you manage so that you get the best results from your management? So we'll have somebody talking about that as well. We'll have somebody from Accountant and Controller General coming to talk about the national accounts and what all these entities are, what they are doing, how it dovetails into the national account, so that you don't think that it's in a vacuum. It's not in a vacuum. It's part of the bigger picture. So we'll have all these people come today to come and talk to us. Happy from Postmom cover so that the broader public can also get the message.
Your order that we can assure you, sir. We're grateful, sir, and pay Ojimbe now needing come, sir.